Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You are watching Christ-Centered Conscious Culture, and I am Melanie, prophet and daughter of I Am That I Am. So if you have not been following, the Lord has me on a wilderness season series. I did part one, which is pretty lengthy, but I would say at the 40-minute mark point, it pretty much talks about some of the warfare that I had in the workplace within my wilderness season. And then I've been doing a part two. I did a part 2A and it's part 2B that I just recently released, and now this is going to be a part 3. So I want to make sure that you guys are following along with me. For those of you who are new to my channel, the Lord has recently called me back. He's taken me out of a backslidden space, and He has sanctified my life, and He has me on a journey. Let me know that I've not only been called, but I've also been chosen. And this process to the promised land has not been an easy journey. And honestly, like I said, I'm not one to, and I say it a lot because I wanted to, let you guys know this is not something that I do on a regular basis. Just like I said, I'm a pretty much transparent person. I'm upfront. I'm a real person, but I'm not always open with like the whole world. You know what I'm saying? I'm within my circle, within my group, circle of friends, and with my family, certain family members, I'm very open and transparent, but if you're not within that inner circle, you will never know most of the times. And sometimes, depending on what I'm going through, you may not even know what I'm dealing with. So I'm not doing this for fame or fashion. I'm not doing this for likes and, gimmicks and scams and stuff like that. I'm doing this being obedient to God. So to God be the glory. Like I said, it's no longer my business when we're talking about kingdom work, right? So I really didn't understand, and excuse the noise, I'm outside, but we're just going to kind of go with it. But I really didn't understand when He told me on Resurrection Sunday for the month of April of 2026, He had told me, He had been dealing with me before. Like I said, back in February, He had gave me like the name of the channel. He's been kind of like refining my process and changing my intro. So sometimes you'll see me kind of look it down and say certain things, but it's one of those things where I'm just allowing my spirit to be led by the Holy Spirit. So if He tells me to change this or do this or say that, that's exactly what I'm doing. So right now, like I said, I want to get right into it. I don't want to be upon your patience long, but we are doing part 3. And part 3 is going to be talking about the healing and wholeness that has taken place within my wilderness season. So pretty much coming from part 2B, I talked about the wilderness season, the dark night of the soul experience that I had, and my actual spiritual awakening. And I cut off and I just let it be because I felt like that's what the Lord wanted me to stop at. So like I said, I'm not here to add anything or put on for anybody. I'm a real person, right? So right now we're going to get into part 3, healing and wholeness. So I had mentioned previously in the previous recorded video about how at the time that I was separated from my husband, eventually it was about 2.5 years or 3 years so before I started kind of getting myself back out there. So I started to kind of like, putting myself back out there, not just like dating wise, but also like just being a little bit more open to like friendships, because I felt like I was just lacking community. I felt like I was not like, doing much. I was so engulfed in working, work, that I wanted to have some type of, leisure and social time. Most of the times I kind of like chill with my mom, and I enjoyed that and enjoy that. But the thing about it was I just was looking for something, on my level to meet my personal needs, right? So like I said, during this time, I still pretty much was in a backsliding state, so I just kind of gradually, how many know it's a slow fade, I gradually got there. So at this time, I'll just pretty much start there with me kind of putting myself out there within the dating scene. And I got my notes here, just kind of like keeping myself on an outline so I don't be rambling. So dating and situationships. So like I said, so I would say this. Growing up, I've always been like more drawn to older guys, like older men. I've always been, kind of mature for my age because I had responsibility at an early age. I'm the oldest on both my mom's side and my pop's side, and I've always been around like older people. I've always found myself drawn to older people. Like I used to have a homegirl that was like my mom age, so, and we was really good friends, in grad school. So it's just one of those things that I naturally found myself being drawn. Like my late husband, if y'all don't know, he's passed away, but even him, he was 5 years older than me. So for whatever reason, it seemed like once I started kind of putting myself out there, I was getting a lot of people that were kind of approaching me were younger than me. So I was like, I don't know about this, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was more about social class, what I was driving at the time, I didn't know what it was, honestly, and I was on a weight loss journey as well. So it was just a lot of things that I was working on before I got separated. And once I got my own place again and kind of like was just doing my thing, I was just really trying to have my own version of healing and wholeness. Keyword, my own version. So I just pretty much worked on my outer parts, right? But after having the dark night of the soul and my spiritual awakening, that came later. That the dark night of the soul came first. My spiritual awakening came after this, what I'm about to tell you now, but this is how I want to kind of like show and convey it all. So I went through a period of dark night of the soul, being very lonely, being very withdrawn, felt like from society, from family, from friends. I was going through a separation, and not a lot of people that I normally would, converse with. We was no longer talking, and if we were, it was really just like void and null. It was really like, diminished. It really was a big change, And I had progressed in that for some years. So 2020, that's when I got my place. And then 2021, 2022. And by 2023, I was tired of that. I was like, look, I'm about to, put myself out here. So that's what I began to do. I kind of went out more. And I was already going out, to different little social gatherings, karaoke night, going out to like little lounges and stuff like that, right? So, and this is being separated, right? So we was not legally separated, but at this time we were living in 2 different cities and 2 different states. So I'm saying that not to say that it was right, but that's where I was at in my life. So being just being transparent about it. So I began to start, putting myself out there. And like I said, I've never been a female. Like I said, everybody's different. I'm talking about me. So I'm not going to say I've never flirted with men before. I definitely have done that. But I've never been the female to just go up and just holler at a guy or a dude. You know what I'm saying? That's just really not my style. That's like not my MO. And it has been times when I found somebody handsome and I made myself more available, but even then that didn't work for me, so I have been more forward, I'm saying? I'm an open person and I have, some level of forwardness to me, but for the most part, you're not gonna ever catch me hollering at no person, like going up to a dude like, yo, you fine, or yo, you, no, I'm not doing that. Now I'll talk, because like I said, I'm a very down-to-earth person. I don't mind talking, having conversations and conversing, with people. So I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with just like, it's just like not my natural, that's just not my natural, how can I say, it's not the natural essence of who I am, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, if you come to me, I'm not like no snobbish type person. If I'm not interested, I'm not interested, but I still will even do that in a minute. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, you know what I'm saying? So that's just that. So like I said, long story short, getting out into kind of like the dating scene, I'm just starting to be approached, by a lot of younger guys. So I will say I've gotten approached by, older guys and guys a little bit, on my age, but not often. It was like an influx of like young guys. So I was really like, after being married for so long and off of the market for so long, I didn't know what to make of that. Some portions of it was flattering, but other portions, and really more so, like, that was a higher portion for me. It was kind of like, it just had me kind of like, skeptical, because I'm like, what you want, and everybody wants something, what I'm saying? Especially when you're in the world, everybody wants something. That everybody's not forthcoming about what they want up front, but I wasn't, dumb either, what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I definitely was still green a little bit because I had been off the market. And then, people and what they do relational wise, they like off the charts. People pretty much down for whatever, with whoever, whenever, whomever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever they want to do, So I had boundaries, and, even though I was in sin, I just wasn't about to just go off wild and be buck wild. I really was just looking more for, like, I would say at first I was looking more so, just to have social friends and, people that I can just kind of vibe with. And then eventually I did meet, some, people. So I met different people here and there. And then I ended up having one younger guy that I actually met with, and we kind of hit it off. And at first I didn't didn't know what to kind of like think of him, and I'm like, yo, you kind of young, you know what I'm saying? And I've always been transparent about my age. And it was to the point like I needed to see IDs. Like, listen, we not, we not doing all of this. I need to know that you are legal. You know what I'm saying? Because people tell you anything, and I'm like, it was just, I'm telling you, it was beyond just being flattered. I was just like, okay, what in the world is this? You know, here it is. I'm older because I was like in what 42, 40, 39, somewhere around there. You know, so I was like getting older. You know. And like I said, for the most part of my life, I've always dealt with and have been attracted to, and guys mostly approached me that were older than me, and that was totally fine. I was kind of used to that. That was like my preference. So it was just really completely different for me. That's pretty much what I'm saying. You know, it was beyond just being flattering. And like I said, I enjoyed the attention of that as well, but it just was more, it made me more resistant a little bit because I wanted to kind of know what was underneath what I couldn't see or what they wasn't saying, you know? So, like I said, I did that and I met somebody and, you know, we kind of hit it off. So we would kind of spend time and stuff like that. And then that's when, you know, you get dealing with the games and people show you their representatives. And I have my representative too, we all do. But it got to a space where I was like, I already had been married, you know, so I already knew what that was about. And I was in a space of like not wanting to be tied down too. So with me being in the world and then my preference of like not wanting to be in a committed relationship, I wasn't looking for no commitment at the moment. I really was not, because I already had been in that for so long, you know what I'm saying? And then even then, you know, I'm not going to get into all of that, but previously, before I met my husband, I waited on the Lord for like 6 or 7 years. So I just wasn't in a space. I wasn't in a space of like, you know, I've been there, done that. I was like, I'm not doing that again. That's where I was at. I'm like, I'm not about to just be out here just, you know, I'm not a nun. You know what I'm saying? I have needs, and I went the sinful way to get those things fulfilled, which is not correct. And I pay for that. And that's what I want to pretty much talk to you about that. But I'm just letting you know, I'm not trying to dress up and promote sin, but I'm just letting you know where I was at and how God saved me and redeemed me. But this is the story, you know what I'm saying? Well, my story anyway. So, like I said, we kind of hit it off and stuff like that. And we kind of hit it off sexually as well. And that kind of like was the source of our connection, you know. But then as time went on, you know, we kind of opened up to each other. And I carried that relationship on. We carried that relationship on for, you know, quite a while. It wasn't a relationship. It was a situationship. That's exactly what it was. It was rooted in lust, you know. But also, I enjoyed the person of what he allowed me to see about him, you know. And we just kind of vibe, you know, on the different things. And it was a particularly big age gap, you know. And it was just new for me. And I think I enjoyed the newness of it, too, as I eventually kind of got, you know, to know the person a little bit better and stuff like that. So like I said, then the games and all that stuff, you know, playing. One thing about me, you are disrespectful to me when you don't respect my time. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, this whole roster, and you know what I'm saying, you don't know where you at on somebody's roster. They talking to you, talking to them, talking to they, talking to whoever they talking to, you know what I'm saying? So the culture even now is that multiple partners is the way to go. Multiple partners is the preference. And really, honestly, I just feel like there's a lot of people out here unhealed, and this is not no judgment at all, because I've been there, done that, you know what I'm saying? Guilty as charged, you know what I'm saying? So I've been there, done that. But I think what it is that people, you know, when you are unhealed, you are, you know, you're full with insecurities, you're full with all types of you know, strongholds, you're filled with all types of you know, I would just say I'm trying to look for the word, but the main thing what I'm trying to convey is that there's just a version of you that's not authentic to your core. When you are out there allowing people to do things to you and with you, and then, you know, you don't know who they talking to, you don't know who they, once they came to you, they might have smashed 3 or 4, you know, girls before they even got to your house. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being 100 over here. I'm being 100. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, the main thing what I'm trying to say is that when you're out there and you're in the world, for whatever reason, right? And I found out the people that I've talked to had some type of background in church, even in sin, right? So we would talk about some of those things. Like I said, I'm a real person, you know, and I never was a person, even in my sin, I wasn't like a person that was like, you know, trying to be fictitious, you know what I'm saying? Really just trying to have like this ulterior vendetta or motive to kind of like hurt and, you know, destroy somebody. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not going to let you play me. You know what I'm saying? Not especially after I found out that you know, play games or see certain signs, you know, but I was becoming more susceptible to the different culture of the dating world. You know what I'm saying? And I know before they was, you know, had a saying that the dating pool got pee in it and all this other stuff, but it is. People are unhealed and hurt, you know what I'm saying, at their core and not doing the work. So what they do is they settle for other situations, they settle for other types of arrangements, relational wise, because they still have needs, but at the same time, it's easier to get your flesh satisfied instead of getting your soul healed. I'm gonna say that again. Actually settle for, and I'll say settle for getting your flesh satisfied. I know me, I did that too. Satisfying my flesh because my soul, my spirit, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't in a space where I wanted to do the work all the way. I felt like, yeah, I want to do my weight loss journey and finances journey. And I was always about holistic healing, you know? But I also was in a broken space. And there's so many different things that the church word don't talk about sometimes when it comes to, you know, I know they talk about it's better to marry than to burn, you know? But is that all? And I know that's the word, but we have to also get understanding in the word. You know, getting married is just not a free pass, a get out of jail card, a get out of celibate card, a get out of being horny card, a get out of being lonely card. And you're not really having a relationship or have found a way to commune and allow Christ to really be your first love and have the necessary support to help you through that in the church world. So you just want somebody to close their legs, but then you're not supporting them to help them keep them closed. Shame on you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because nobody knows what it's like to have to wait on the Lord and be lonely, and not every person that wait on the Lord is lonely. Like, you have